I never thought the words, "It's just for one night," would completely change the way I saw my own family. The house was mine, not gifted, not inherited, not borrowed, mine. I had spent 6 exhausting years building my life from scratch. While my sister bounced from hobby to hobby and job to job, I worked double shifts, skipped vacations, and lived in a tiny apartment with peeling paint and noisy neighbors. Every bonus went into savings. Every raise went into my down payment fund. I learned how to repair things myself, negotiated contracts carefully, and refused to let distractions pull me off track. The day I signed the papers and held the keys to my first home, I cried in the car. Not because it was a mansion, it wasn't. It was a modest, beautiful 3-bedroom house with a long driveway, a small backyard, and a wide porch that caught the sunset just right. It was peace. It was security. It was proof that discipline pays off. My parents congratulated me, but I could see something behind their smiles. It wasn't pride, it was calculation. My sister, Amanda, on the other hand, barely looked up from her phone. "Must be nice," she muttered. That should have been my first warning. 3 months later, Amanda announced she was throwing a huge milestone party. Apparently, she'd landed a marketing internship that might turn into something permanent. My parents were ecstatic. "This is her big break," my mother said, as if Amanda had just been elected president. Then came the twist. We were thinking, my father began carefully over dinner at their house, "Your place would be perfect for the party." I laughed. I genuinely thought he was joking. "You have the big driveway," Mom added. "And the open living room. It would look amazing in photos." "No," I said simply. The silence was immediate. Amanda rolled her eyes. "Why are you being dramatic? It's just one night. It's my house," I replied calmly. "And I don't want 50 strangers in it." "Family supports family," Mom snapped. That phrase, the family motto that somehow only applied when I was expected to sacrifice something. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just repeated, "No." They left dinner cold and angry. I drove home feeling uneasy, but also firm. Boundaries aren't cruelty, they're clarity. 2 weeks passed. No one mentioned the party again. Amanda posted vague quotes online about fake support systems and jealous energy, but I ignored it. Then came Friday. I got off work early because a meeting was canceled. As I turned onto my street, my stomach dropped. Cars, everywhere. My driveway was full. My lawn was lined with vehicles. Music blasted from inside my house, my house. For a second, I thought I had the wrong address. But there it was. My porch light on. My curtains open. People I didn't recognize holding red cups and laughing on my front steps. I parked across the street, heart pounding in my ears. My parents had a spare key. I had given it to them for emergencies. Apparently, emergency meant throwing a party I explicitly refused to host. I walked up the driveway slowly. My front door was wide open. Decorations hung from my ceiling. A banner read, "Amanda's Big Break." Inside, strangers were standing on my hardwood floors with shoes on. Someone had set drinks on my coffee table without coasters. My dining table had been pushed against the wall to create space for dancing. And there was Amanda, in a glittery dress, posing for photos in my living room. My mother saw me first. "Oh," she said, like I'd just arrived early to a surprise. "You're home. What is this?" My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. "It's just the party," Dad said, stepping forward. "We knew you'd cool off. You broke into my house." "Don't be dramatic," Mom hissed. "We have a key," I said. "No." Amanda crossed her arms. "You're seriously going to ruin this for me?" I looked around at the chaos. Someone had already spilled something near the hallway. I could smell alcohol. My neighbor across the street was standing outside watching. That was the moment something shifted inside me. They didn't see me as a homeowner. They saw me as a resource. I walked outside without another word. Mom followed me. "Where are you going? Don't make a scene." "I'm not," I replied calmly. I got in my car and drove straight to the nearest hardware store. 30 minutes later, I was back, with new locks. My father was on the driveway when I returned. "What are you doing?" "Fixing my mistake." I waited until the music grew louder and people were distracted. Then I stepped inside and announced clearly, "Everyone who is not legally on this property needs to leave. Now." Laughter. Someone thought I was joking. I wasn't. I did not give permission for this event. If the house is not empty in 5 minutes, I will call the police for trespassing. The word police changes energy fast. My mom rushed toward me. "Have you lost your mind?" No, I said quietly. I found it. Guests started grabbing their bags. Amanda's smile had vanished. You're embarrassing me, she shouted. You embarrassed yourself when you walked into someone else's home without permission. Within 10 minutes, the house was empty except for my parents and sister. Give us the key, I said, holding out my hand. Dad hesitated. Now, he placed it in my palm. I stepped outside and began replacing the locks while they stood on the driveway watching in disbelief. You're overreacting, Mom said. It was just one night. It's not about one night, I replied. It's about respect. When I finished, I opened the door one last time. You need to get off my driveway. Amanda stared at me like I was a stranger. We're your family, and this, I said, gesturing behind me, is my house. They left without another word. That night, I cleaned until 2 a.m. I wiped every surface. I checked every room for damage. Thankfully, it wasn't catastrophic, but it wasn't the point. The point was trust. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages from relatives. How could you humiliate your sister? Family doesn't call police on family. You've changed. They were right. I had. For years, I had been the reliable one. The stable one. The responsible one. Which somehow translated into being the one who could always give more. More money, more time, more patience, more space. But ownership changes perspective. I didn't buy a house just for walls and a roof. I bought peace. And peace requires boundaries. A week passed. Then 2. No calls from my parents. Then one evening, my father showed up, alone. He didn't have a key anymore, so he knocked. When I opened the door, he looked smaller somehow. We shouldn't have done that, he admitted. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't tearful, but it was real. I need you to understand something, I said. If you had asked, and respected my answer, even if you didn't like it, we wouldn't be here. He nodded slowly. Your mother thought you'd give in. That's the problem, I replied. Amanda never apologized, but she also never asked to use my house again. Holidays became quieter, smaller, different, but something surprising happened. I felt lighter. Standing up for myself didn't destroy my life. It clarified it. People who value you adjust. People who use you protest. Months later, I hosted my own gathering. A small one. Close friends. People who text before arriving. People who ask before opening cabinets. People who wipe their feet without being told. As I stood in my kitchen watching them laugh, I realized something important. The house wasn't just a symbol of independence. The locks were. Sometimes the hardest thing to change isn't the hardware on your door. It's the expectations people have about unlimited access to you. I didn't change the locks because I hated my family. I changed them because I love myself enough to protect what I built. And if that makes me the villain in someone else's story, I can live with that. Because at the end of the day, when the driveway is empty, the music is off, and the lights are dimmed, I lock my door knowing one simple truth. Respect is not automatic just because we share DNA. It's earned, and in my house, it's required. The morning after I changed the locks, the silence felt louder than the music had the night before. No pounding bass, no fake laughter, no slammed car doors, just stillness. I stood in the middle of my living room with a trash bag in one hand and a sponge in the other, staring at the faint sticky ring marks on my coffee table. Evidence, proof that even when you act fast, people still leave traces behind. But the real mess wasn't on my floors. It was in my phone. 73 unread messages, family group chats buzzing, missed calls from my aunt, a voicemail from my cousin saying, I don't know what happened, but Aunt Linda is hysterical. I didn't open anything, not yet. Instead, I made coffee and sat on my porch. My porch. The sunrise looked the same as it always had, but I felt different. Stronger, and strangely calm. That calm didn't last long. By noon, my mother posted on social media. She didn't use my name, but she didn't have to. Some people let success go to their heads. Sad when money matters more than family. The comments flooded in. You did everything for your kids. You don't deserve that. Ungrateful children are the worst. I read it all without reacting. Because here's what no one knew. This wasn't the first time. When I got my first job at 16, my paychecks helped with groceries. When I got scholarships in college, part of the refund went to family needs. When I got my first promotion, I was pressured to co-sign a loan for Amanda's car. I always said yes, because I thought that's what good daughters do. But this house, this was the first thing that was only mine. And they tried to take that too. 3 days later, Amanda finally called. I let it ring once. Twice. On the third call, I answered. "You're unbelievable," she started, skipping hello entirely. "Do you know how many people are talking about this?" "I imagine quite a few," I replied calmly. "You made me look like an idiot. You walked into someone else's house without permission. You're my sister, and that doesn't override property law." She scoffed. "So you'd really call the police on us?" "Yes." Silence. I could almost hear her recalculating. "You've changed," she said quietly. "No," I answered. "I stopped allowing things." That conversation spread through the family faster than my mom's post had. Some relatives stopped responding to me entirely. Others tried a softer approach. My aunt invited me to dinner, to talk things out. I went, not because I needed approval, but because I wanted clarity. The entire evening felt like a trial. "Well," my uncle began cautiously, "maybe everyone overreacted." I smiled politely. "Breaking into someone's home isn't overreacting. It's illegal." "It wasn't breaking in," my aunt corrected. "They had a key. They had a key for emergencies." This was important to Amanda. So is my sense of security. The table went quiet. Then came the predictable line. "Family should forgive." I leaned back slightly. Forgiveness and access are two different things. They didn't like that answer. But I wasn't there to be liked. I was there to make something clear. I wasn't negotiating my boundaries. The following week, something unexpected happened. My neighbor, Mr. Alvarez, knocked on my door. "I just wanted to say," he said gently, "you handled that better than I would have." I blinked in surprise. I was about to call noise control myself, he added with a chuckle. "Didn't know it was your family." That's when it hit me. It wasn't just about me. My parents had risked my reputation in my own neighborhood. Homeowners talk. Streets remember. One reckless decision could have labeled me as that house. Instead, I acted quickly enough to protect it. Reputation isn't about ego. It's about stability. Meanwhile, my parents went silent. No visits, no calls, until 2 weeks later, when Dad showed up again. This time, Mom was with him. They stood on the porch like strangers. "We want to talk," Mom said. I didn't invite them in. "We talked outside." "You embarrassed us," she began. I folded my arms. "You embarrassed yourselves. You could have handled it privately." I did. 2 weeks before the party. Dad exhaled slowly. "We thought you'd come around." "That's the issue," I replied. "You didn't respect my no." Mom's eyes narrowed. "You always say no first. And you always ignore it." That stopped her. For the first time, she didn't have a quick defense. Dad spoke again. "We shouldn't have used the key." "No," I agreed. "You shouldn't have." Mom looked at the new lock. "Are we never getting a spare again?" I didn't hesitate. "No." Her expression tightened. "You don't trust us." Trust isn't automatic. It's maintained. That conversation ended without hugs. But it ended with something better. Understanding. Not acceptance. Not agreement. Understanding. They finally realized I wasn't bluffing. The family dynamic shifted after that. Subtle but undeniable. Amanda stopped making jokes about rich homeowner energy. Mom stopped volunteering my house for holidays. And when Thanksgiving approached, they didn't assume. They asked, "Would you be willing to host?" Dad said carefully over the phone. "Under my rules," I replied. "What are they?" "Limited guest list. No rearranging furniture. No alcohol without asking. And it ends by 9. There was a pause. "Okay," he said. Thanksgiving came. 20 people instead of 50. Shoes left by the door. Coasters used. No banners taped to walls. And when it ended at 9, people actually left. Mom lingered behind while others gathered leftovers. "You're serious about this boundary thing?" she said quietly. "Yes." She nodded slowly. "It feels different." "It is." For the first time in years, I wasn't exhausted after a family gathering. Because I wasn't resentful. Resentment grows when you say yes while meaning no. Boundaries eliminate that. Amanda pulled me aside before leaving. "I still think you went extreme," she admitted. "Maybe," I said, "but extreme was needed." She hesitated. "Some of my friends thought it was kind of iconic." I raised an eyebrow. "The lock thing," she clarified. I laughed despite myself. "That wasn't for show." "I know," she said. "That's why." That was the closest thing to respect she'd ever shown me. Over the next few months, something interesting unfolded. Other relatives started quietly confiding in me. My cousin admitted she was tired of being the automatic babysitter. My aunt confessed she felt pressured to loan money constantly. "You said no," my cousin said in awe. "Yes. Weren't you scared?" "Terrified." But you did it anyway. That's the thing about boundaries. They feel like earthquakes at first. But after the shaking stops, everything settles into a stronger foundation. One evening, months later, I pulled into my driveway after work and just sat there for a moment. The driveway was empty, no surprise guests, no banners, no assumptions, just peace. The house looked the same as the day I bought it, but it felt different, safer, because it wasn't just protected by wood and steel. It was protected by clarity. I didn't lose my family. I adjusted them. The ones who valued me stayed. The ones who valued access complained. And eventually, even the complainers adapted. The truth is, people don't test boundaries that are consistently enforced. They test the ones that bend. Mine don't bend anymore. Sometimes I think back to that night, the music, the laughter, the disbelief on Amanda's face when I told everyone to leave. If I had stayed quiet, if I had kept the peace, if I had cleaned up silently and pretended it was fine, nothing would have changed. They would have done it again. Bigger next time, louder, more entitled. Instead, I changed the trajectory with one sentence. Get off my driveway. It wasn't cruel. It was necessary. And sometimes, necessity sounds harsh to people who benefit from your silence. Now, when I lock my door at night, I don't just feel secure. I feel respected. And respect, once established, becomes the new normal. That house is still standing. So am I. And both are stronger because I finally decided that access to my life, like access to my home, is a privilege. Not a right.